My boyfriend lost his memory and insists I'm his stepmother. His filthy rich father paid me 30 million. Play along, help him recover his memory. Later, he finally remembered with red-rimmed eyes. He came to me, Sophie. You said you loved me forever. His father coldly closed the door, his tone flat. Don't be disrespectful. Your mother didn't get enough sleep last night. Let her rest. And when Adrian Knight first got together with me, he mentioned he had a complicated family. Laughing internally, I thought, aren't wealthy families always complicated? Back then, I was just focused on charming him. So I nodded perfunctorily, sweetie. No matter how complicated, it won't stop me from rushing to you without a second thought. Adrian was deeply moved and agreed to be my boyfriend on the spot. Then the very next day, he lost his memory in a car accident. I was still at the pub, chatting animatedly with my best friend when the hospital called. Do you know what the hardest thing in the world is? Diamonds, no. It's an 18-year-old. Before I could finish, my phone on the table rang. Answering the call, an unfamiliar male voice came through. Is this Miss Sophie Winters? The voice was deep, mixed with the noisy pub music and rather pleasant to the ear. Yes, who is this? He didn't answer my question, replying calmly. Please come to Central Hospital as soon as possible. Adrian Knight has had an accident. My new, less than 20 for our boyfriend, my little puppy dog, had an accident? I took a taxi to the hospital, found Adrian's room. His head was bandaged, that young, handsome face marred with several scratches. A man stood by the bed, nearly 190 centimeters tall, in a suit and leather shoes, his expression stern. Hearing the noise, Adrian looked up at me. Mum, you're here. I was incredulous. What did you call me, Mum? He frowned slightly, looking at me puzzled. What's wrong? Furious, I was about to roll up my sleeves and have it out with him when the man who had been like a piece of furniture by the bed finally moved. He raised his hand, stopping me, and gave a slight nod. Miss Winters, let's talk outside. On his wrist was a Patek Philippe watch worth millions. He looked to be in his early 30s at most, his hair impeccably styled, his face quite striking. With a tall nose bridge and thin lips pressed together, his eyes held a hint of scrutiny and coldness when they looked at me. Closing the hospital room door, standing in the corridor, he told me Adrian had memory confusion due to the head injury from the car accident, so he mistook me for his stepmother. I went, oh. And how should I address you, sir? Julian Knight. Same surname. I nodded in understanding. I see, you're Adrian's older brother, right? No, I'm his father. It felt like a thunderbolt struck me. I stared at him, stunned. You must be joking. Adrian is 18. You look about 30. And now you're telling me you're his dad. Julian frowned slightly, and I noticed a slight resemblance to Adrian in his features. Miss Winters, let me correct 2 points. Adrian is not my biological son, but we are related by blood and he's not 18, he's 16. My vision went dark. If Adrian hadn't had this car accident tonight, wouldn't I have been on the path to breaking the law this weekend? In the hospital's ground floor cafe, Julian and I sat facing each other. This was a private hospital. Expensive, even the coffee prices were exorbitant. I casually ordered an iced Americano, and it cost 3 figures. I took a sip, grimaced, and almost spat it out. Bitterer than my life, Julian sat opposite, calmly repeating, in short, the doctor said Adrian's injury is quite serious. Creating an environment that matches his memories aids his recovery. I hope Miss Winters can cooperate with me. I smirked. Mr. Knight's paternal love is touching. Unfortunately, just a minute ago, I decided to break up with Adrian. What a joke. I'm only 25. Why would I want to be a stepmother to my almost of age ex-boyfriend? I got up to leave. Julian didn't move, just sat unhurriedly behind me. 30 million. My steps halted abruptly. I turned to look at him. Pounds. Yes, I don't believe you. Put it in writing. Then Julian actually called his lawyer right there in the hospital cafe. He had a contract drafted in front of me. The contract stated that as long as I lived with him as his wife for 3 years, helping Adrian recover his memory, I would receive 30 million as payment after tax. He would pay 10 million upfront, and after 3 years, regardless of whether Adrian recovered, the remaining 20 million would be paid in full. After signing, Julian transferred 10 million to me on the spot. I counted the zeros twice, tears welling up in my eyes as I put my phone away. Dad, just tell me what you need me to do. Julian stood up, reminding me calmly, Miss Winters, from now on, you need to change how you address me. I readily complied. Okay? Husband? No problem. Husband? Shall we go see your son now? Husband? 3 days later, Adrian was discharged smoothly. I packed my things and moved with them into the Knight family's detached villa near the city center. Actually, I thought Julian looked familiar at first glance. After thinking about it, I remembered he had been featured in a finance magazine as an outstanding young entrepreneur in the city. I never imagined I'd have this kind of connection with him one day. Along the way, Adrian clung tightly to my arm, whispering, Mum, you need to keep a close eye on Dad. If you can't stop him from being with other women, at least make sure he doesn't transfer marital assets. Mum knows. I affectionately stroked my dear son's hair, my feelings complicated. Just 3 days ago, I was still fantasizing about some scenes that couldn't be broadcast, with him and me as the main characters. Now, in the blink of an eye, he's 2 years younger, and I've been promoted in generation. I can't think about it anymore. It's starting to sound like a stepmother romance plot. On the second night of moving into the Knight family home, I rolled up my bedding and moved into Julian's room. The room was lit with warm yellow light. He was sitting at the desk, wearing glasses, reading a book. I glanced at it. The title consisted of a few obscure terms, probably something about economics. Seeing the quilt in my arms, Julian raised an eyebrow and put down his book. Miss Winters, we're just acting. You don't need to go this far. I took a deep breath, my tone sharp. You think I want to, Mr. Knight? I never date men older than me. It's because Adrian kept asking me all night if our separate rooms meant our relationship was bad. I couldn't answer him. In Adrian's confused memory, I was the only stepmother he acknowledged, while Julian was romantic and fickle. His gold-digging girlfriends all wanted to replace me as Mrs. Knight. He even got teary-eyed in the end, looking at me stubbornly. Mum, no matter how unfaithful Dad is, you're the only one I recognize. Dad's such a good kid. What a pity. Julian rubbed his temples and nodded. Understood. The bed is yours. I rolled around on the bed a couple of times with my quilt and fell asleep. When I woke up, it was broad daylight, rubbing my sleepy eyes. I yawned and headed to the ensuite bathroom, only to bump right into Julian as soon as I opened the door. He was disheveled, hair still dripping, even his eyelashes had droplets on them. Just woke up, my brain was a bit slow. My gaze traveled downwards, and it wasn't until I saw the ABS that I reacted. Julian looked down at me, his pupils holding an unreadable emotion. I even felt he was waiting for me to make some exaggerated, evasive reaction to achieve his goal. So I smiled, reached out, placed a hand on his shoulder, and winked ambiguously. Husband, not going to the company today. Julian looked at me, unmoving. I continued teasing him, my fingertips tracing the water droplets from his shoulder down to his chest. Wanna try making the act real? Julian's lips curved slightly. He suddenly picked me up and threw me onto the bed. I sprang up like a carp, glaring at him warily. Julian, that's a separate price. He stood by the bed, looking down at me, a slight smile on his lips. Miss Winters, I have no interest in my son's girlfriend. That round was a draw. Julian dried his hair, changed clothes in the walk-in wardrobe next door, and returned to his usual aloof and cold appearance. Miss Winters, when you have a moment later, remember to accept my friend request. With that, Julian left without looking back. I lay in bed for a while, then picked up my phone. Sure enough, there was a new friend request. After accepting, Julian got straight to the point, sending just one group invite link. City First Secondary School, Year 13, Class 6. It was the parents group for Adrian's school. There's a parents' evening tonight. I have a client and can't get away. Please ask Miss Winters to go. Standing at the entrance to Adrian's classroom, my feelings were complex. I met him at the university basketball court near my neighborhood. He lied, saying he was 18. A freshman. Turns out the kid is in year 13, Mum. Adrian enthusiastically rushed over as soon as he saw me. My seat is over there, with my name on the desk. I had just sat down when the woman next to me, carrying a Hermes bag, spoke up. You're Adrian Knight's mother? Yes. She gave a tight, insincere smile. You look quite young. Flipping through Adrian's exam papers showing severe subject imbalance, I answered offhandedly, stepmother. The parents' evening lasted an hour and a half. I lagged behind, and as I left, I overheard her whispering to another well-off mum. She doesn't look much older than the kid. Has him wrapped around her finger. Must be quite something. Yeah. Should we mention to the teacher? Sitting next to a woman who probably schemed her way up, I feel it lowers my standing. Clearly, they were talking about me. I curled my lip, picked up my Taobao 19.90 free shipping canvas tote, and squeezed with a forced smile between them. Excuse me? Hey. Amid their dissatisfied exclamations, I looked back, giving them a mistress smile. You two should really focus on maintenance. Maybe in a couple of years, the girlfriend your sons bring home will be me. Then I floated away under their shocked and angry gazes. A light drizzle was falling outside. Adrian had already got home first. I took out my phone just as my best friend called. Sophie Winters. Where have you been? No contact for a week. Did you get married or something? She always liked to talk nonsense. But this time she hit the mark. I hailed a taxi, got in. Yes? You're joking. Your boyfriend is only 18. Not even of legal age with his dad this time. Even the worldly Ja fell silent. After a deathly quiet moment, she hung up directly. Then sent a pub location on WeChat. Explain. In person. I gave the address to the driver, put my phone away, and rolled down the window a bit, feeling the cool raindrops on my face. I've always suffered from motion sickness, so when I walked into the pub, a slight nausea lingered. Settled in a booth, I briefly explained the situation, ending by showing her the 8 figures in my bank account. Actually, Julian is even better looking than his son, but he's old, goes against my principle of only dating younger guys. Jill looked utterly bewildered. What kind of surreal experience is this? Can we still happily chat up handsome guys together in the future? I raised my glass, down the entire Bailey's, as long as Julian doesn't find out. It should be fine, right? The light in front of me suddenly dimmed. I looked up into a familiar, handsome face, his expression still indifferent, but his eyes held a strange coldness. Miss Winters, since you've taken the money, I hope you can at least have some professional integrity. The alcohol made my brain sluggish, feeling heavy and dizzy. Looking at Julian's stern face, I blurted out, "The contract only says we're a couple. It doesn't say I can't have affairs, right?" Unfortunately, the music flowing through the pub stopped at that exact moment, and my voice was a bit too loud from the drink. Under the stare of the entire pub, sitting opposite me, silently took out a mask and put it on, covering her face. Julian's lip twitched slightly. He bent down, picked me up, and hung my shabby canvas bag on his arm. Before leaving, he remembered to turn to and say, "She's drunk. I'll take her home first." I curled up in Julian's passenger seat, appreciating his smooth driving, and suddenly realized something. I only get motion sickness, but not in a Lamborghini. What a tragic story of having a delicate constitution but a maid's fate. Bloody hell. The car was silent, only the faint smell of alcohol lingered. I shifted to a more comfortable position and asked Julian, "Weren't you tied up with a client? How did you end up at the pub?" "Finished the business and was about to leave, happened to see you getting out of a taxi and entering the pub. So I followed." My vision went dark. "Then how much of my conversation with my friend did you hear?" There was a red light ahead, he braked, one hand on the steering wheel, turning to look at me. A slight smile on his lips, all of it. I closed my eyes in despair, pretended to be drunk and unknowingly fell asleep. When we got home, Adrian was still awake. He was sitting on the sofa playing games. Seeing Julian helping me in, he rushed over. "Dad, did you upset Mom? Why would she go drown her sorrows in drink?" Julian lied without batting an eye. "Your mom is happy. At the parents' evening today. Your teacher specifically praised you, said you've improved a lot." "Really?" Adrian was skeptical. Julian nodded. "Go to sleep early. Play fewer games. This is the most crucial year. You can't slack off." He helped me upstairs. Rounding the corridor, out of Adrian's sight, I suddenly opened my eyes, grabbed his wrist and pinned him against the wall. My voice, tinged with alcohol, was dripping with sweetness. "Husband." Julian looked down at me. "Today at the parents' evening, other parents said I was your mistress who schemed my way up." I smiled, lifted my chin, and slowly moved closer to him. "You know, when I first met your son, this is how I charmed him." I thought Julian would coldly push me away, but under the warm yellow corridor light, his eyes darkened and instead he pinched my chin, preparing to lower his head and kiss me. The sound of footsteps approached from afar. The kiss never landed, only brushing softly past my cheek. Julian pressed my head onto his shoulder, turning to look at the astonished Adrian. "She's had too much to drink and isn't feeling well. I'm keeping her company here for a moment." Adrian nodded and continued upstairs. I laughed, muffled into his shoulder. "That was close. Almost kissed his ex-girlfriend right in front of your son, huh?" He straightened my head, his tone carrying a warning. "Sophie, don't play that game." Even though my behavior after drinking isn't great, I remember everything that happens very clearly. So when I woke up the next day, and remembered teasing Julian while drunk, I really wanted to bid this beautiful world farewell. He didn't seem to mind at all. Tying his tie, he turned to look at me nestled in the duvet. "Sophie." I smiled ingratiatingly. "What are your orders, Knight?" Julian frowned slightly. "If you have any plans for Friday evening, please cancel or postpone them. We're taking Adrian back to the main family house." "Oh, all right. We even might have to stay overnight at the so-called main house." I spent the next few days at home, furiously typing away on my laptop. During this time, Ja called. "So, Sophie, what happened after your husband took you home that day?" "What could happen? He has enough women outside to keep him busy." Even though I hadn't seen Julian interact with any women other than me, Adrian's confused memories couldn't have come from nowhere. In the afternoon, I picked up Adrian from City First Secondary, and the driver took us to the Knight family estate in the suburbs. I'd never seen such a luxurious residence in my life. Adrian seemed to sense my nervousness and unease, reached out his hand proactively. "Take my arm. Mum, don't be afraid. If anyone gives you a hard time, I'll stand up for you." Entering the living room, I was dazzled by the crowd of people. The most striking among them was Julian, standing right in the center. It was a bit warm inside. He had taken off his suit jacket, revealing a silver-gray pinstripe shirt. Next to him stood a young, beautiful woman with impeccably styled curls, wearing a light silver silk gown, smiling as she talked to him. They looked very well matched. Hearing the commotion, Julian's gaze swept over. When he saw Adrian and me arm in arm, his expression turned cold. But Adrian held my hand even tighter. "Mum, that's the woman, using the excuse of being childhood friends with Dad. She wants to kick you out of your position as Mrs. Knight." Childhood friends. I was instantly intrigued. Originally, I wanted to stay and watch the drama unfold, but Adrian dragged me over, his face cold as he called out, "Dad." Before Julian could respond, the beauty beside him smiled gently. "You came too, Adrian." Adrian said expressionlessly, "And this is the Knight family home. Why wouldn't I be able to come?" The beauty's expression stiffened. Julian's gaze fell on my face, seeming meaningful. A moment later, he spoke affectionately. "Sophie, come here." I was startled, but I obediently walked over, letting him hold my hand as he introduced me to the important relatives of the Knight family. One of the women, adorned in golden jewelry, smiled and said, "Julian, we haven't heard you mention this before. It seems this is your first time bringing Miss Winters back to the main house, right?" regardless, to be the Knight family's daughter-in-law. You at least need the grandma's approval, don't you? Julian's lips curved slightly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Sister-in-law, you jest. Adrian and I don't live at the main house, we rarely visit, as my wife. Sophie only needs my recognition, others' opinions are irrelevant. To prove our relationship was good, his hand rested on my shoulder, sliding down my back curve until it settled on my waist. He leaned down, his posture as if whispering intimately, and said softly, lean closer. I promptly snuggled into his arms, saying in a delicate and soft voice, husband. Adrian has been studying hard and said he was hungry on the way here. When will dinner be served? My dear son across from me shot me an approving look. The Knight family was truly populous. Throughout the entire meal, I hadn't even memorized everyone, but sipping red wine, I watched a live drama of wealthy family intrigue. Their attitude towards Julian was clearly both distant and apprehensive, especially when Adrian was mentioned. Julian's eldest brother and sister-in-law looked particularly uncomfortable. I also learned the name of the silver-gown beauty, Eleanor Yao, the daughter of a family friend of the Knights. Obviously, they wanted to match her with Julian. Actually, when they were little, Julian and Eleanor got along the best. The eldest Knight's sister-in-law put down her chopsticks and began reminiscing. Back then, we even said since these two children were so close, the two families were sure to become in-laws someday. Who would have thought? Eleanor also smiled slightly. Julian, when did you get married? I don't seem to have received a wedding invitation. Julian remained composed, placing a sweet prawn on my plate, and even tucking my stray hair behind my ear. Sophie prefers simplicity, I just listened to her, so we kept the wedding small. Thinking of my behavior facing those 30 million. A pang of guilt hit me. I quickly peeled the prawn and placed it back in Julian's bowl, somewhat ingratiatingly. From the other side, Adrian's voice was cold. Why should my dad and Mom's wedding invite you? Who do you think you are? Adrian, Julian spoke faintly. That's very rude. Apologize to Miss Yao. Slap. Adrian slammed his chopsticks down and stood up abruptly. Why should I apologize to her? Mom takes care of me tirelessly at home, and in return, you hook up with this kind of woman outside and let her bully her, is that it? With that, he stormed out. I looked left and right, feeling torn, but decided to follow him. The autumn night wind carried a chill. I hadn't brought a jacket and was shivering. Adrian. He glanced back at me, stopped, took off his school blazer and put it over my shoulders, muttering apologetically, sorry, Mom. Did I cause trouble for you again? I patted his head. It's fine. I'm sure your dad can handle it. Sitting by the fountain in the Knight family garden, the jacket still held the young man's body warmth. Adrian hung his head slightly, his tone somewhat sad. Mom, if dad really treats you badly, just divorce him. That won't do. There's still 20 million I haven't received. Actually, your dad treats me quite well. I racked my brains and decided to borrow from other stories. Once, I had a stomachache in the middle of the night. He braved the rain to buy medicine and bring it to me. Another time we went hiking, I sprained my ankle, and he carried me all the way down the mountain. The protagonists of these two events were actually me and Adrian, but he lost his memory now. So when he heard this, he just looked slightly dazed. Is that so? I nodded, continuing my nonsense. So, Julian, your dad isn't actually that scum. Those outside are just motels. The two of us are his home. As I finished speaking, I looked up and saw the man himself standing just a step away. Looking down at us, Julian said, let's go. Are we staying at the main house tonight? Under his gaze and thinking I was still wearing Adrian's jacket, I felt inexplicably guilty and quickly took it off to return to Adrian. Adrian didn't remember, but both Julian and I knew about that short-lived relationship, even if it only lasted a day. No, we're going home, Julian said, taking the lead towards the garage. After one step, he seemed to remember something, took off his suit jacket, and gave it to me. If you're cold, wear this. A faint woody scent wafted from the jacket, completely different from the young man's clear scent. I was silent for a moment, curled my lip and decisively put it on after returning home. Adrian went to sleep. I spent a long time with my laptop, feeling restless and unable to write anything. I simply took a can of beer from the fridge and slipped into the yard. That's when I discovered Julian was there too. Our eyes met. I raised my beer can. This won't incur extra charges, will it? Obviously, it was a pointless question. Julian disdained to answer. He looked at me quietly for a moment, then suddenly said, I thought you'd ask me about Adrian and the Knight main family. I'm just here to do a job. I know better than to ask questions I shouldn't. Julian's lips quirked slightly. You suddenly being so compliant with the contract feels a bit unfamiliar. I smiled, casually tossed the crushed empty beer can away, walked over, leaned on the chair back behind Julian, and bent down. You heard everything I said that night. I shook my head regretfully and sighed. What a pity, Julian, you're so good looking. I'm almost tempted to break my principles for you. The distance was close, his clear eyes like a lake under the moonlight. The next second, he suddenly raised his hand, cupped the back of my head, and with a slight pressure my lips met his, then break them. This voice was deeper and hoarser than his usual tone. Like a spell opening Pandora's box, and everything suddenly spiraled out of control. His hand moved down a bit, warm fingertips touching the skin on the back of my neck, gently stroking. The scent of alcohol on me, and the steady woody scent on him gradually merged into one indistinguishable. Julian's Adam's apple moved, his voice husky. Sophie, let's go back to the room first. I smiled, straddled his legs, and deliberately said, don't be so careful. Adrian is already asleep upstairs. He won't hear. One should never tempt fate lightly. Because the next second, I heard a familiar young voice behind me. Mum? Looking back, the young man's originally bright eyes were deep. Aside from sleepiness, there seemed to be other indescribable emotions. I slowly got up, trying hard to change my expression from passionate to loving and kind. Couldn't sleep, bad dream? Adrian stared at my face for a long moment before saying, I was hungry. Came down to find something to eat. I rubbed my face. It's cold, don't stand by the door. Come in, I'll make you a midnight snack. Before entering, a thought struck me, and I looked back. Julian was still sitting on the bench in the yard, but had picked up the beer can I discarded at some point. He looked at me, his expression restored to its usual indifference, as if the earlier confusion and passion were just a momentary mistake. I pursed my lips, withdrew my gaze, and walked steadily into the kitchen to make Adrian a bowl of instant noodles, adding to poached eggs. He ate the noodles silently, unusually quiet. Julian walked in from outside, passed by us with a cold expression, not even glancing our way as he went upstairs. I sat opposite Adrian, smelling the aroma, suddenly felt hungry, and decided to make a bowl for myself too. But as soon as I stood up, Adrian suddenly reached out and grabbed my arm. Are you going to find Dad again? No. I was stunned at seeing a flash of confusion in Adrian's eyes. Then he gradually frowned, as if feeling some pain, and let go of my hand. Adrian? Did you remember something, Adrian? The young man slowly opened his eyes, looked at me, and gently shook his head. The next day, Julian went on a business trip. Then, for many days, he was basically out early and back late, nowhere to be seen. At first, I didn't pay much mind until that day. He told me in the morning he was meeting a client. But in the afternoon, when I went out with Ja, I saw him shopping with a woman Ja noticed first. Quickly poking me, Sophie, isn't that your cheap husband over there in the Hermes store? I looked up, and it really was Julian, standing next to him. Holding up a gold brown bag to the mirror was none other than Eleanor Yao. In an instant, I suddenly understood. He was avoiding me. Ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. The person Adrian mistook was his idea. The acting was his proposal. I've only ever lacked money. Since when have I lacked men? I watched coldly as Julian paid the bill, walked out of the store with Eleanor, each carrying a bag, and disappeared from view. After dinner, Ja got a message from her new boyfriend and went to a live house for a show. Feeling upset, I went to the previous pub, ordered a drink, and leaned against the bar smoking. After just 2 drinks, a man in a suit sidled up next to me, thinking he was cool, and snapped his fingers. This one's on me. I ignored him. He followed. Annoyed. What are you playing at? Coming here to pick up guys and still acting like a pure virgin. Already irritable. I threw my drink in his face and sneered. Picking up guys requires standards too. Ugly people not welcome, piss off. The man was furious and raised his hand to hit me. But his hand, raised midair, was firmly caught by a slender, large hand. The light shone down, illuminating Julian's face, cold enough to freeze ice. The man grimaced in pain. You? Let go of me. Julian didn't let go, even tightened his grip. Even in a suit, he looked refined. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his wrist bones prominent, the muscle lines on his forearm exceptionally beautiful. When he finally released his hand, the man was sweating profusely, too embarrassed to even utter a threat as he fled. Julian slightly lowered his head, looking at me. Let's go home. I followed Julian out and got into his Lamborghini. As soon as we were in the car, he spoke, his voice icy. Sophie, since you signed the contract, I hope you can have some professional integrity. Oh, the contract only says to act as a loving couple. As long as Adrian doesn't know, it should be fine, right? I said sarcastically, just like when you took Miss Yao shopping. You saw me with her. I didn't answer. Actually, if nothing unexpected happens, following your wealthy family alliance tactic, Eleanor is a fiancée chosen for you by the Knight family, right? Julian was silent for a moment. There was indeed that intention before. Mr. Knight, I'm 25. I have the needs of an adult, since you have reservations, and I don't intend to force it. Why don't we each do our own thing, okay? Julian slammed on the brakes, pulled the car over, undid his seatbelt, leaned over, and stared straight at me. Sophie, don't you? Don't what? I raised an eyebrow provocatively. Don't seduce you, don't go out picking up men. Or don't. The rest of my words were cut off, because Julian's lips came over, blocking all my words. I had been drinking. He hadn't thought it was always like this. I only dared to provoke him when drunk, but he sank into it soberly. In the quiet car, a phone rang. Julian glanced at it briefly. When he saw Adrian Knight on the caller ID, he instantly regained his composure. He answered the phone, his expression quickly turning serious, even sharp like an unsheathed sword. I frowned and asked, what's wrong? He hung up, looked at me deeply. Adrian is in trouble. Adrian had been kidnapped. The ransom they demanded was 10 times what Julian paid me. I wouldn't even dare dream of that much money. But Julian was very calm. Fine. But I need to ensure he's safe and sound. He hung up, immediately called the police, then phoned his secretary to prepare the cash and alerted the shareholders for a meeting. Watching from the side, I suddenly felt something was off. Before Julian left, I stopped him. Adrian will be okay, right? Yes. You anticipated this, didn't you? Julian didn't respond. He looked at me with an inscrutable expression, his usually calm and indifferent eyes sharp and penetrating for a moment, then quickly hidden again. He reached out, gently ruffled my hair. Wait for me at home. Wait my foot. Just saying. How could there be such a good deal in the world, getting 30 million just for acting as a loving couple, almost matching those daily earnings of 2.08 million. Over the next few days, I witnessed Julian's eldest brother and sister-in-law suddenly come forward, accusing him of adopting his nephew to annex the assets under his name. Then, the stock price of Julian's company plummeted before rebounding. He presented police evidence proving the couple had orchestrated Adrian's kidnapping to cut off his cash flow. Amid the chaos, the Yao family issued a statement saying they would soon form an alliance with the Knight family through marriage. That evening, as I was eating instant noodles at the dining table, Julian returned. His clear, cold eyes held a trace of weariness. Under the golden red twilight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling window, he looked at me. Adrian's memory has returned. I nodded, finished the last bite of noodles, drank a few mouthfuls of broth from the bowl, wiped my mouth and stood up. I packed my luggage first thing. Remembered to transfer the remaining 20 million to my card. Sophie, Mr. Knight, a useful pawn should be worth that much, right? I said with a smile. Don't welch. I may have no money or influence, but in the internet age if pushed, I'll send that contract to every breaking news blogger and marketing account online. Julian pressed his lips together, his jaw tense, silent, just staring fixedly at me, probably this greedy, shallow act had left an indelible impression on him. I went back to my room, dragged out my suitcase and left the Knight family home. Julian didn't follow. A few nights later my bank card received transfers, totaling 40 million. That was 10 million more than agreed in the contract. I figured it was probably hush money. So the next day, I dragged her to look at properties in a new development nearby. She gave me reckless advice. With this much money, why not just buy a villa, settle it in one go? Are you kidding? Do you know in the 2 months I lived with the Knights, their villa needed to housekeepers cleaning every day? After saying this, I suddenly spaced out. Somehow, I remembered the beginning of last month. The housekeeper had polished the glass door to well. I walked right into it, thud. My head buzzing as I sat on the floor. A large bump swelled on my forehead. Julian happened to be coming home from work. Seeing me like this, he was stunned for a moment, then came over to help me up. That usually expressionless face held a rare hint of helplessness. He made me sit at the dining table, went to find the first aid kit, and used a cotton swab to apply bruise and swelling medicine to the swollen area. The cool sensation on my forehead felt soothing. I squinted, looked up at Julian's beautifully defined jawline, and suddenly reached out, grabbing his wrist. Be gentle, it hurts. My voice was low and hoarse, the words somewhat slurred, sounding almost like a coquettish whine. The atmosphere, enhanced by the warm yellow dining room light, slid towards uncontrollable ambiguity. Julian paused, looked down at me, his Adam's apple bob clearly affected. But nothing happened. He packed away the first aid kit, told me to get some rest early, and then went into his study, not returning to the bedroom all night. Just the next morning after waking up, I found 2 window stickers had been placed on the kitchen glass sliding door, making it impossible to mistake it and walk into again. The housekeeper said Mr. Knight had specifically instructed it before leaving in the morning. Sophie Gia's voice brought me back. Let's go, check out another development. I settled on an 80 square meter, 2-bedroom, 1 living room apartment, not huge, but more than enough for one person with a view of the artificial lake in the distance. On the other side of the lake was where Julian's villa was located. Leaving the sales office, dusk was approaching, and a light snow was falling sporadically outside. Gia hesitantly spoke up. Sophie, I feel like you're not very happy. Haha. How could that be? I forced a laugh, breathing warmth onto my cold fingertips. Just 2 months of acting, 40 million pay. I'm so happy I could jump to the moon right now, you know? There are plenty of handsome guys in the world, but how many chances to get 40 million for free? I thought the indescribable sadness in my heart was probably because I wouldn't get to ride an emotion sickness-free Lamborghini anymore. But it's fine. I have money now. I'll go buy one myself tomorrow. After returning home, as I approached my building, a figure suddenly emerged from the side. I was startled, thinking it was a mugger, about to scream for help, when I met a pair of familiar, bright and moist eyes. Adrian. He stepped out of the shadows into the light and looked at me. Sophie. He didn't call me Mom, so his memory was back. Looking at his slightly reddened eyes, my feelings were complex. Julian said you were kidnapped. Were you hurt? No. He had people ready to intervene. Adrian shook his head, pausing. So, you were cooperating, Julian, acting like my mom because he promised you 30 million? I nodded. Why? Because I'm just that shallow, vain, materialistic, and utterly depthless woman. A cold wind carrying dense snowflakes blew past. Not wanting to see his teary eyes any longer, I wrapped my coat tighter, turned, and walked into the building. This is the most critical year for your studies. Go home early. After returning home, I lit a cigarette and stood by the window looking down. Adrian trudged slowly towards the community gate, his back looking dejected like an abandoned puppy. Then a familiar Lamborghini pulled up beside him. Julian got out of the driver's side, I don't know what they said, but he suddenly looked up towards my window. It was a great distance, through layers of wind and snow. Yet I had the illusion he saw me. My eyelashes fluttered, I blew out a puff of smoke. By the time the white cloud dissipated before my eyes, the car had driven away. Before bed, I received a message from Julian, Miss Winters. I didn't expect Adrian to look for you. If he disturbed you, I apologize on his behalf. So formal. I smiled mockingly, biting my cigarette as I typed, a verbal apology is meaningless. How about some compensation? Julian didn't reply for a while. I thought he disgustedly blocked me. But then he sent another message. I've never seen you spend much. Do you need so much money just to act vain on purpose? Stung, I called him directly. Can't I just look at it? Checking my bank balance before bed makes my dreams more confident. What's it to you, Julian? You give the money. And now you want to control how I spend it. He was silent for 2 seconds, then actually apologized. Sorry, it just made me look even worse. Forget it. I never had any manners to begin with. Don't apologize and don't call again. I hung up, feeling somewhat dejected as I lay back on the bed. During my time at the Knight family home, I nonchalantly wore my pilled pajamas, cheap acrylic sweaters, and carried my 19.90 canvas tote in and out of the villa area, even getting stopped by security several times. Julian saw all this. But actually, even without Julian's 40 million, 3 years of writing diligently, I had saved a considerable amount. I just never felt it was enough. I only felt secure watching the numbers in my bank account rise. Life as a student was just too hard. I have a younger brother, 2 years my junior. Unlike the useless brat spoiled by ignorant parents, he is very clever, famously outstanding in our small county town. Because of this, even the pocket money given by our family went to him first, for him to distribute to me. My brother wouldn't easily give me money. Back then, in my adolescence, I had acne and wanted to ask him for money to buy an ointment. He and his friends, all younger than me, would mock me mercilessly, calling me crater face, ugly sister. Only after laughing would he throw a bill on the ground like alms. I complained to my mum. She called my brother over. He obediently took money from his pocket and handed it to her besides the £5 sister took. I haven't touched the rest. I know mum and dad work hard for money and don't want to burden you more. He was indeed clever. I couldn't outsmart him. In high school, I boarded, coming home every weekend. My mum gave me £30 for the week's food. Later in university, it increased a bit to £300 a month. I was so poor I had to calculate my meal card balance down to the last penny. I always thought our family was just too poor. Conditions were bad. Until my brother failed his university entrance exams, not getting into his desired top universities. My mum took out £1 million to send him to study in the UK. That was £1 million. While I was cutting my hair short to save shampoo, my brother was posting pictures of several £10 cups of coffee in Sky Gardens on social media. The desire for money probably started then. I found ways to earn money. Took on various part-time jobs until I started writing novels and found I had some talent. Royalties, copyright fees, all went into savings. It wasn't that I couldn't bear to spend it. I just felt it wasn't necessary. My desire for material things is actually quite faint. I simply like money. And as for relationships, I only date younger guys. Young hearts are fickle. I just need to enjoy their youth without considering a long-term future. But these old, trivial matters aren't worth bringing up. And I didn't want Julian to pity me because of them. His repeated loss of control and passion in front of me was the best reward. That night, I smoked almost half a pack and had many dreams. The scenes in the dreams were unspeakable. At first, it was a young, handsome face, but upon closer look it turned into Julian's. I woke up with a splitting headache from my phone ringing. It was my editor. She said a film company was interested in 2 of my books and wanted to meet next week to discuss the rights. Sleepiness vanished instantly. I was wide awake. What serendipity! What a double blessing. Indeed, money flows to those who already have it. The following days, I was highly motivated and stayed home writing, even turning down Gia's invitations to drinks. But the night before the scheduled meeting, just after finishing 8,000 words, my doorbell suddenly rang. It was Adrian. Outside was freezing, but he was dressed lightly, his breath forming white puffs, his fingertips red from cold. Feeling somewhat guilty towards Adrian, I led him into the warm apartment and asked, "Why aren't you home so late? Where's Julian?" Probably a habit from the acting days. My tone automatically held a touch of affection when speaking to him. Adrian held a cup of warm water, looked up at me, a flicker of unreadable emotion in his eyes. "He's with Eleanor." "Oh, Miss Yao again." I nodded in understanding. After all, they're about to get engaged. Your memory is back. You know he's not your biological father. So don't throw a childish tantrum. Adrian pursed his lips as if suddenly make up his mind. "Sophie, can you wait?" I was taken aback. "Wait for what?" "Wait for me to graduate this year. The Knight family shares under my name will fully come to me then. Whatever Julian can give you, I can give you too. Just wait 6 months." As Julian said, Adrian isn't his biological son, but they are related by blood. Adrian is the only son left by his deceased second sister, Vivian Knight. Meaning Julian's nephew according to Julian's eldest brother and sister-in-law. Julian adopted Adrian precisely to covet the shares Vivian left for her son. These wealthy family feuds are always a Rashomon situation. No one knows the truth except those involved. I sighed. feeling a headache coming on. Adrian, I admit I'm not a good person. But even if I'm beastly, I still have basic moral boundaries. I won't get involved with a minor. Who said I'm a minor? Julian did. He said you're only 16. He lied. Adrian almost jumped up from the sofa in his urgency, hastily pulling his student ID from his backpack to show me. Adrian had turned 18 a month before we met. But why would he lie to me? Suddenly, I understood. In Julian's eyes, I was an old pervert. So he worried that after getting the money and signing the contract, I might still take advantage of living under the same roof to go after Adrian again, using the legal age as a barrier. Furious after Adrian left, I immediately called Julian. It rang several times before he answered. Before he could speak, I angrily said, Julian, you look respectable. But your thoughts are soddy, Sophie. His voice sounded drowsy and drunk, which surprised me. You're drunk. During my time at the Knight residence, I'd seen that Julian strictly avoided alcohol. He responded softly, his voice somewhat hoarse, a bit nervous. So I had a drink. Since you like it so much, I thought it couldn't be too bad. I realized he was drinking the cheap beer I'd bought by the case and left in the villa fridge unfinished. So the Julian who could banter with me so effortlessly would also get nervous around Eleanor. True childhood sweethearts, indeed, less than true love are worlds apart. I sniffled, quickly suppressing the budding sadness in my heart. I didn't speak, just hung up. The next day, I took a taxi to the agreed-upon private dining restaurant. The car smelled awful, and I started feeling motion sick, getting worse. As soon as I got out, I leaned against a tree trunk and dry heaved. When I looked up, I saw a familiar dark black Lamborghini parked ahead. What a coincidence. Was Julian here for business today? Or on a date with Eleanor? I cursed my luck internally, but upon pushing open the private room door, I came face to face with him. Julian sat in the central seat, a faint, elusive smile on his lips. My editor came up to me, enthusiastically introducing, Sophie, this is Mr. Julian Knight, the CEO of our parent company, Cipher Media. He is the one interested in your fated love duology and plans to buy the rights for film and TV adaptation. I sat down opposite Julian, forcing a smile. I didn't expect Mr. Knight to enjoy reading romance novels in his spare time. He smiled slightly, not particularly, but Miss Winters' works happened to suit my taste. I feigned sudden understanding. Oh, so Mr. Knight enjoys the groveling after the breakup trope. My editor's expression froze. She pulled out her phone and frantically messaged me. Are you sleepwalking, antagonizing the money? Bags like this, are you insane, right? Never quarrel with money. I calmed myself down and put on an ingratiating smile to Julian. The rest of the meeting went smoothly. Towards the end of the meal, Julian promised to buy the rights for the 2 books at the highest market rate. Mentally calculating the sum, I suddenly found Julian very agreeable. Raising my glass, Mr. Knight truly has an eye for quality. I toast to you, hoping for a pleasant cooperation. By the time I remembered, he didn't drink. Julian had already downed the entire glass of champagne. The alcohol rushed to his head, tinting his pale, cool complexion with a faint blush. After a trip to the restroom, when I returned, the table was cleared and only he remained in the room, eyes closed as if sobering up. I grabbed my coat, ready to slip away, but Julian's slightly hoarse voice came from behind. Sophie. I turned to see him still seated, hands folded on the table, looking at me calmly. Long time no see. I sighed, had to put my bag down and sit back. Julian, since we're keeping it professional, why not see it through? Earlier was business, now is personal time. I scoffed. Mr. Knight, I thought our transaction was over. It is over, but a new one has begun, he said faintly. These 2 rights of yours will be the company's key projects for the first quarter. So Julian, is that why you bought my rights? What do you mean? I stood up, leaned over, inch by inch, slowly getting closer to him. A smirk on my lips. Even if they're key projects, as a big boss, you are not necessary. Personally handle this kind of contract. Tell me, Mr. Knight, why did you buy my rights and deliberately personally come, just for what? The sweet scent of champagne mingled in our breath. At such close range, Julian looked into my eyes, his voice cold and hoarse. Miss Winters, in matters like this, you never yield an inch. I hummed lightly, taking it as a compliment. Go on. I admit, I wanted to see you. His tone held a note of helpless tenderness, as if conceding. Satisfied, I sat back down. Julian, you knew from the start. So I'll stop pretending I am indeed fickle and promiscuous. But I have my limits. I won't destroy other people's marriages. He stared at me intently. Since you're about to get engaged to Miss Yao, don't think about straying. Something flashed in his deep, cool, ocean-like eyes. Do you hope I get engaged to her? I sneered. If I said I don't, would you call off the engagement? What if I said I would? Julian, I'm 25, not 5. I didn't want to waste more breath on this nonsense and got up to leave. This is why I don't like dating older men. They can often lie without batting an eye, thanks to their maturity and experience. Like Julian, last night he was on a date with Eleanor. So nervous he drank, and today he could spout nonsense about not getting engaged just to sleep with me. After the new year, my rights contract was signed. As soon as the payment came through, I went car shopping with Ja. Probably because the imprint of poverty was etched deep into my bones, I couldn't bring myself to buy a Lamborghini. I settled for a car just over £10,000 and bought one for two. She couldn't believe it, kept confirming, and finally, tearfully, hugged me. When one man gets to the top, all his friends get there with him. The ancients didn't lie. Quite the literary scholar, always spouting cultured phrases. To show her gratitude, Ja offered to set me up with a handsome younger guy. How handsome? Got a photo, just as I asked. I received an unknown call. It was from Adrian's homeroom teacher, saying he'd been in a fight at school and asking me to come. I wanted to say I'm not his mother to call Julian, but in the end, I drove my new car to City First Secondary. I waited in the car. I rushed to the teacher's office and ran into Adrian. His face still bore wounds, seeing me. His eyelashes fluttered. Sophie, I sighed and started asking, why did you get into a fight? They insulted my mom, said she deserved to die. I looked up and met the homeroom teacher's extremely complex gaze on me. Ms. Winters, aren't you Adrian's mother? Stepmother? Then Adrian's way of addressing you. That's our family matter. Didn't you call me here about the fight? I said impatiently. Since that's the case, have that student apologize to our Adrian. Then we'll let it go. Consider the matter closed. The teacher looked at me in disbelief. Ms. Winters, Adrian was the one who started it. Hitting his deskmate, he stepped aside, revealing the bruised and battered boy behind him and his furious Hermes-clad mother. I looked. Well, if it isn't my old acquaintance, I know. But there's a reason, right? I reached out, pulled Adrian to my side and smiled. This student and this auntie. Do you not know the saying, speak not ill of the dead? Saying such things, you'd better not walk alone at night for the next few years, lest you run into ghosts. You? The wealthy mum rushed over to hit me, but I pushed her, making her stagger back and land on her bum. Then she lost it. Slut. Vixen. Can't go a day without a man, even seducing your stepson. A cheap woman like you should have been drowned in the old days. I laughed. Amid her torrent of abuse, I walked up to her, crouched down, studied her face for a moment, and then slapped her. You old hag with a mouth so foul. You do know that was the past, right? How many years has it been since the founding of New China? Are you still living in the Qing dynasty? She was stunned, then pulled out her phone, crying, and called her husband. I lost my patience, stood up and looked at the dumbfounded teacher. Teacher, if there's nothing else, I'll take Adrian home now. If that student and his mother have any further issues, please contact Adrian's father. Adrian, let's go. The kid, without a word, obediently followed me out. Once outside the office building, I couldn't help but sigh. When I first tried to charm him, I painstakingly maintained an elegant, intellectual older sister image in front of Adrian. Later, acting on Julian's request, I was a gentle, virtuous, loving mother figure. But today, that image was utterly shattered. Standing at the school gate, I turned to him. Why didn't your teacher contact Julian? He's with Eleanor picking engagement rings. He said once everything is settled, they'll announce the engagement. I admit, I felt a twinge of discomfort for a second, but I quickly suppressed it. I have something else to do later. Can you get home by yourself? He nodded obediently. All right, head straight back. Don't wander. The university entrance exams are only a few months away. Watching Adrian leave, I got in the car, simmering with anger, and called Julian. He answered, Mr. Knight, I know you're deeply in love, but you won't die if you don't date a woman for a day. The engagement ring can wait. Your fiancé won't run off. Having been inexplicable scolded, my tone was sharp. Whether as a father or uncle, since you're Adrian's guardian, could you please show some concern, okay? After a moment of silence, Julian's cool voice came through. What happened? I rolled my eyes. Call his homeroom teacher and find out yourself with that. I hung up and looked at Ja. She patted my back soothingly. Don't be angry, Sophie. I'll take you to meet your new boyfriend. Right now his band has a performance tonight at the White Dwarf Live House. Performance? She nodded. Yeah. He's a bassist in my boyfriend's band, a 185 centimeters tall, ABS 4 days younger guy. Only in his second year of uni. Just showed me a photo. A guy with silver wolf-cut hair, wearing a choker and a lip ring. Honestly, a bit too punk for my taste if we really got together. I'd worry he cut my lips. Driving to the live house entrance, I spotted a painfully familiar figure, looking at Julian in his suit and tie. A watch worth more than all the tickets combined times 10. I almost doubted my reality. Mr. Knight, you listen to rock too? The surrounding rock fans had hair of all colors, wore bandanas and merch t-shirts. The sound of rehearsal drums faintly came from the venue. Julian seemed unaware of his out of place, simply giving a slight nod. Ja looked at me hesitantly. I waved her off. It's fine. You go find your people backstage. I'll catch up later. After Ja left, Julian, one hand in his pocket, offered me his phone with the other. You didn't hang up. My eyebrow twitched, and I subconsciously clarified it wasn't on purpose. I know. Julian's tone paused slightly. Though calm as ever, I seemed to detect undercurrents beneath the icy surface. But I was sensing something. My throat tightened. I swallowed and forcefully changed the subject. Did you contact Adrian's homeroom teacher? I called on the way here. Oh. Then he must have told you I hit his deskmate's mother. He nodded. It's fine. I'll handle it. Now I'm here to talk about us. The diversion failed. The topic returned to Julian and me. He looked straight at me. Even knowing you didn't leave the call open on purpose, I came immediately. Sophie, you should know why. I did not, so I sneered. Was what I said last time not clear enough, Julian? I can't play games with you older men. Since you're already picking engagement rings, why still bother me? He suddenly stepped forward, took his hand out of his pocket and hugged me, his warm lips pressed against my ear. Before I could struggle, Julian spoke. I did go to pick an engagement ring, but not with anyone. I went alone. My attempt to push him away halted abruptly. With difficulty, I said, even so. That day you were on a date with Eleanor. So nervous you drank. Date? Julian sounded puzzled. I haven't met her in a long time. I did drink because I was nervous that day, but it was because I was meeting you. The next day. Huh? I immediately understood. Adrian. So young, yet so scheming. This embrace lasted a long time. His body heat transferred. It grew warmer, and the night breeze passing by no longer felt as biting as in winter. Just as Julian cupped the back of my head and lowered his to kiss me, I suddenly realized spring had arrived. Music drifted from the nearby venue. Queen's Love of My Life. Because you don't know what it means to me, love of my life. After 3 months, I was once again in the noble car that didn't make me carsick. I texted Ja, then turned and met Julian's gaze. I said, let's not disturb Adrian. Studies my place. Julian's lips curved, but no smile reached his eyes. You're quite considerate of him. I scoffed. Am I being considerate? Or are you? Last few times, you pushed me away the second you saw your son. I thought you were some chase saint. Julian pressed his lips together, silent. Oh right. Who said? I have no interest in my son's girlfriend. I pressed on relentlessly. He suddenly reached over, kissed my lips, and helplessly raised his hands. I surrender, then drove me to another one of his properties. Also a villa, a bit more remote, but with a glass room in the yard that surprisingly housed a hot spring. The extent of Julian's wealth truly exceeded my imagination. The room was dimly lit. Julian and I stumbled onto the bed in disarray. Julian held me in his arms, kisses raining down thin and dense, growing increasingly scorching. I suddenly remembered something, pushed him away forcefully, jumped up, and lunged for my phone on the desk. What's wrong? Julian's voice was husky with dissatisfaction. No chapter in the draft queue. Haven't updated today. Almost lost my full attendance bonus, 600 a month. I skillfully operated, copied and published the new chapter, put my phone down, and returned to Julian. His usually clear, cold, mountain snow eyes were tinged with desire. The surging passion not yet fully receded, his tone somewhat displeased. Am I not worth 600? Different nature. Mr. Knight, don't objectify yourself. I held his face, smiled and kissed him. Fine. I'll let you have your way with me. But his movements were unusually clumsy, raising my suspicion. Julian gazed into my eyes, speaking low. I'm not very experienced. I blinked. You've never been in a relationship before, no? Julian's lips pressed together. Then he lowered his head to kiss me again, murmuring against my lips, Sophie, you leave me. Facts have proven that those exceptionally talented in business aren't bad at other things either. From a blank slate to getting the hang of it, Julian only took half a day. When I woke up the next day, the sweet smell of wheat wafted from downstairs. Julian was frying toast, making breakfast, quite the homemaker. I went downstairs in slippers, actually, for breakfast. I prefer yudiao and jambing. He placed a sandwich on a plate and pushed it towards me. I'll buy them for you next time. I smiled. Thought you'd say again, Miss Winters should eat less of that unhealthy stuff. Back when I lived with the Knights, I'd make congee for Adrian at night, righteously telling him to keep dinner light. Then, after he slept, I'd sneak out to the nearby night market for snacks. Once, dressed as shabbily and carrying a portion of fried noodles, I got stopped by security at the gate and had to call Julian to come get me. Julian came out on the way back. He said indifferently, Miss Winters should eat less of that unhealthy stuff too. Clearly, Julian remembered too. He narrowed his eyes, walked over, looked down at me, holding a grudge. Good memory, can't help it. He hummed lightly, suddenly picked me up, and moved me onto the marble kitchen countertop. The cold, hard surface felt jarring, as if have a premonition of something. I swallowed, and heard him leisurely start settling old scores. Someone also said, she doesn't date older people because they way older and lack stamina. Trapped in his arms, I hooked my ankle behind his knee, smiling. Yeah, I still think so. Soon. I regretted saying that. In the evening, rubbing my sore back and waist, I met up with Ja. She asked, so, you really turned the act with your cheap husband into the real deal? Really? Being worldly? Ja couldn't help but sigh. But with such a big gap in family backgrounds, it might not last. Who said I wanted to last? I took a sip of my drink, just like all the others before. It's just a relationship. I only care about the present. Really? Just sounded hesitant. I thought you'd actually fallen for him. Yeah, I had. But having feelings doesn't mean I can blithely tie the rest of my life to someone else, gambling on their loyalty and lasting affection. I figured Julian felt the same. So we both tacitly kept this relationship from Adrian. The rights development progressed fairly smoothly, and my contact with him became more frequent as a result. Business during the day, romance at night. With less than 2 months until the university entrance exams, the apartment I bought was successfully handed over. Since it was fully renovated, I just added some furniture and appliances and moved in. Julian came to help me move. After entering and looking around, he said, it's a bit small. Why not buy a bigger one? Short on money? If I said yes, would you transfer me more money? Julian looked at me, of course. What of course, is the world of the wealthy always this casual? I raised an eyebrow, smiling. It's perfectly enough for me. If Mr. Knight finds it too cramped, we don't have to stay here in the future. So then, as if to prove he didn't mind, Julian stayed at my place every day for the next week. So much so that Adrian even called alertly. Why haven't you been coming home lately? Julian, without batting an eye, like calmly, handling contracts of the company. He said this while his fingers were still tracing the mole on my waist. I remembered when we first met. He used the same tone to tell me Adrian was only 16. But that was a lie. I wasn't a mood killer and didn't want to bring up Adrian's name at such a moment. Unexpectedly, he brought it up first. I thought you'd ask me about Adrian. The stretch to the limit ambiguity instantly vanished. I sighed and turned to pour myself a glass of water. Nothing to ask from the known information. I can pretty much guess most of it. It was nothing more than Adrian having a womanizing father and a helpless mother. And Julian probably had a decent relationship with Vivian. So after her passing, he took Adrian in as a writer. I'd even written similar wealthy family dramas. But reality is often crueler than fiction. Julian took a tissue, pressed it to his lip where I'd just bitten it. His tone still calm but with a hint of coldness. When his parents passed, Adrian was only 8. But for the 8 years before that, his parents argued incessantly. So when his memory got confused, he projected those events onto you and me. His parents passed together. I immediately caught on, staring at Julian, my mind making some unpleasant connections. He nodded. You could call it a suicide pact, or something else, more extreme. In short, nothing good. I let out a long breath. Well, it's fine. Every family has its own troubles. On the day the apartment passed inspection, I rarely posted on social media. That night, I got a call from my mom. You bought a place? Why didn't you tell the family? I had blocked them. Probably some distant relative saw it and passed it on. Would telling you have helped? I sneered. Yeah. Bought a place. Still short on money for renovations. Want to sponsor some? My mom hung up directly. Since my brother was sent to the UK for studies, I hadn't been back home. My relationship with my mom was already strained. Now we barely contacted each other once or twice a year. Even New Year's was spent with Sophie. I snapped back to reality and found Julian standing in front of me. He kissed the water droplets from my lips and said softly, "You never told me about your family. Nothing worth telling." I put down the glass, looked up at him. You can just assume, like Adrian. My parents are gone. It seems every time I tempt fate, I get slapped back quickly. The next afternoon, while I was home writing, the doorbell suddenly rang. Thinking it was Julian back early, I opened the door to 3 familiar figures. My dad, my mom, and my slightly overweight brother. How did you find this place? My face turned cold as I tried to close the door, but my brother shoved it open. Sis, your own photos gave away the estate. Can't blame us. As for which you need, just ask the property management. We're your family, after all. The 3 walked in uninvited, didn't even take off their shoes, looked around and nodded satisfiedly. Not bad, not bad. A bit small, but enough for a marital home. My mom looked at me. Sophie, we found a match for your brother. The girl won't continue unless he has a property in the city. Hand over your place. A commanding tone. Staring at her self-righteous expression, I suddenly laughed. Get married? He embezzled so much company money. Shouldn't he be heading to jail soon? My brother's little cleverness worked on me when we were kids but wasn't enough later. Last year, he graduated and returned, leveraging his UK degree to land a decent finance job. But he messed up, used company funds for stock speculation and lost everything. The shortfall couldn't be covered. The company was suing him. My parents exhausted their savings, begged everywhere, barely keeping him out of jail. But the family was left penniless. My brother lost his job and his reputation in the industry was ruined. This year, they probably accepted their fate, planning to get him married off quickly to continue the family line, and set their sights on me again. Hearing this, my mom flew into a rage, rushed over to slap me. I caught her wrist, stared down at her. Get your son out of my house, or I'll call the police. With that, I took out my phone to dial, but my brother slapped it out of my hand and stomped on it. Call the police. What for? Sis, we're family. You think the police will bother with family matters? The exact same words. You think dad will care? You think mom will take your side? For many years, I lived under the shadow. With slightly less mental fortitude, they'd have driven me to a breakdown long ago. Staring at his snarling face, the last thread of my sanity snapped. Ah, my brother screamed, clutching his nose, stumbling back, blood streaming. I punched him in the face. My mom shrieked, pounced on me, and started clawing. Soon, my dad and brother joined in. The 3 of them beat me together in the home I bought. Ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. A tearing pain shot through my eye socket. Something warm trickled down, dripping by my lips. In the chaos, I faintly heard a soft door opening. Then Julian's voice, icy cold and filled with fury. Sophie. The weight on me suddenly lightened. Through my blood-blurred vision, I saw him yank my brother off me, pin him against the sofa, and punch him hard several times. My parents' strength was enough for me but no match for Julian's fists. Just as he was about to strike again, I called out softly, Julian, take me to the hospital. While he was distracted, my parents helped their precious son up, and they scrambled away. Julian knelt before me, reached out to touch my face. His fingertips were trembling. Sophie. The intense pain made it hard to think. I could only muster the last shred of reason. Struggling to force a smile. Sorry for the poor hospitality. Quite a spectacle, huh? He said nothing, just picked me up from the floor, put me in the car and sped to the hospital. Having Julian witness this, just months into our relationship, I felt deeply ashamed. While my wounds were being cleaned at the hospital, I desperately tried to justify myself. New sofa, quite expensive too, and it got dirty in just a few days. I'll replace it for you. Hey, if there's nothing serious, you should head home. The wound doesn't seem too bad. Adrian's exams are soon. I'll call ya, Sophie. Shut up. Julian's tone was furious to the extreme. I still had a basic sense of danger and promptly shut up. The doctor slowly cleaned the blood, covering half my face with cotton balls, revealing the wounds. A few minor scratches, some soft tissue bruises. The worst, a 2-centimeter gash stretching from the corner of my eye to my temple. The doctor said, probably cut by metal. The weather's hot now. It might scar if not careful. Julian looked grave. I hadn't even seen that expression when his company's stock plummeted. He had the doctor treat my wounds, then called his lawyer, talking about an injury assessment and preparing to sue. Once everything was handled and the doctor left, only he and I remained in the hospital room. Under the bright fluorescent light, he walked over, sat on the edge of the bed, and gently took my hand resting by my side. My fingertips were icy. His palms were burning hot. I looked down, smiled. Well, letting you see such a mess so soon after we got together must be quite a turnoff, right? Someone like Julian, so rational and clear-headed, upon sensing potential, inescapable trouble, he'd probably make the most decisive choice. I waited for him to say let's break up or something more polite, but instead I got an embrace. Mindful of my injuries, he held me lightly, but his words in my ear carried the force of a thunderclap. Sophie, this isn't shameful. No one can choose the family they're born into. Being related to them is your misfortune, but it's not shameful. My throat felt blocked. I couldn't make a sound. Slowly, bit by bit, I raised my hand and returned his embrace. I felt myself trembling. My eyes were wet. Tears soaked into the gauze on my wound, stinging sharply. For so many years, I tried my utmost to sever ties with them. Besides, I never mentioned my family to anyone, and I'd done quite well. Some even enviously told me, you have such a good personality, so relaxed every day. Your family must be really happy, right? I just smiled. No, not at all. It's just that when attraction is mostly superficial, of course you present your most appealing side. Who has time to care about your long, tragic past? Sophie, you don't know how to have a real relationship. What you think is dating is just flirting. I refused to back down, and you do. Julian shook his head, held my hand, pressed it gently to his cheek, and gazed into my eyes. I don't either. So, let's learn together. Because the gauze got soaked with tears, the doctor had to come back to reapply medicine and bandage it. He sternly warned us, keep this up, and it will scar. Julian pressed his lips together and apologized. I, with no sense of self-preservation, asked the doctor, Doc, can I smoke and drink? Of course not. Want to get disfigured for real? The doctor was merciless also for the next while. Your diet must be bland because of this. Julian suggested I move back to the night villa, so my meals could strictly follow medical advice. What about Adrian? His exams are next month. Don't worry about him. Julian drove, saying faintly, necessity knows no law. His studies and future are his own responsibility. Besides, your family knows where you live now. It's better to avoid them until the lawsuit is filed. Had to admit, Julian made sense. So after discharge, I packed his suitcases and moved into the night residence, the second time living here. I was already quite familiar. That evening, as I sat at the table eating congee, Adrian came home from school. Seeing me, he froze for a second, then rushed over and stood in front of me. His gaze fell on the gauze by my eye and the bruises on my cheek. The kid's eyes turned cold instantly. How did you get hurt? Bit by a mad dog. I reached out, subconsciously wanting to pat my dear son's head. Julian came out with cut fruit and snorted coldly nearby. I suddenly realized this wasn't like during the acting days anymore. So I silently put my hand down. It's nothing. The doctor said it'll be fine with proper care. Adrian sat down opposite me, staring worriedly at my wounds. I thought for a moment and asked him, that time I hit your classmate's mom, he hasn't given you any more trouble, right? He shook his head. Sophie, I'm fine. Don't worry. Adrian. Julian walked over, tapped the table with his knuckles. Go study. Adrian paused, slowly stood up, stared into Julian's eyes and said word by word, got it, uncle. Teenage boys grow fast. He was already almost as tall as Julian, though his frame was slimmer. Facing each other, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I felt like a femme fatale. In the end, Adrian went upstairs to do practice tests. Julian sat opposite me, forked a piece of pear and brought it to my lips. I took a bite, looked at the lingering coldness on his face, and suddenly smiled sideways. Mr. Knight, are you jealous? He just stared at me, silent. I suddenly remembered my face currently looked like a palette. Sorry. Habit when I smile like this now. Must be quite ugly, right? Julian shook his head, took my hand from the table, and pressed it to his cheek. He said hoarsely, not ugly. It makes me have a crush on you more than before. Eyes were clear, like mountain spring water, utterly pure. My heartbeat involuntarily quickened. I withdrew my hand and stood up. I'm going to shower. But hiding on the balcony, just as I pulled out my cigarette case, a hand reached from behind and took it. Julian said faintly, I knew it. I sighed. What about your engagement with Eleanor? The Yao family already issued a statement. They only said an alliance with the Knight family, didn't specify who. Besides, I spun off my company from the main family 5 years ago. Julian pocketed my cigarette case, ignoring my resentful look. I haven't seen Eleanor in a long time, and won't have any relationship with her in the future. But I saw you shopping with her before, at Hermes. Julian turned to look at me, something shifting in his eyes. Not shopping with her. Was acting for my brother and sister -- law is for the other thing. He suddenly grabbed my wrist, took me back to the bedroom, then pulled a Hermes orange bag from the walk-in closet. Julian handed it over. I opened it. Inside was a cream blue bag. He looked at me, his emotions like an intangible mist, enveloping me without leaving an escape. That day, going to the pub to find you, I saw your bag was worn out. So I bought you a new one. Haven't decided when to give it to you yet. I'd never owned this bag but researched it while writing. Its price exceeded my car's. Staring into Julian's eyes, 5 words suddenly popped into my head. He's serious. Early June, the period drama based on my novel officially started filming. Julian and I attended the opening ceremony. After leaving, he took a call and returned to the company. I planned to find ya, but was stopped by a familiar yet strange woman. Eleanor, carrying that gold-brown Hermes, smiled elegantly at me. Miss Winters, there's a cafe nearby. Shall we have a drink? No need, I sighed. Cafes are risky. Either I splash you, or you splash me. I've written that plot hundreds of times. Say what you want here. Her expression stiffened. A moment later, she dropped the smile, crossed her arms and looked at me coldly. Miss Winters, you're smart. I hope you'll be sensible. This alliance benefits both families and will aid Julian's career. If you truly love him, you should consider his best interests. I don't love him. I love money. So I'm with him to milk him for all he's worth. I deliberately dangled the bag Julian gave me in front of her, watching her face pale with anger. Unless you can offer a higher price, otherwise, please leave, Miss Yao. That evening, Julian returned and played a recording file from his phone in front of me. My voice came out. I don't love him. I love money. So I'm with him to milk him for all he's worth. He turned off the recording and looked at me. I was furious. You wealthy families play dirty. Julian's lips curved slightly. Do you really love money that much? While I was speechless, he turned, took a document from the bookshelf and handed it to me. Shall I give it to you? I flipped through it. It was a contract for the unconditional gift of that hot spring villa. Was I dreaming? I took a deep breath, closed the contract, looked up at him. What is this? Severance pay? Julian's eyes turned cold. A small gift. Thank you. A small gift worth millions. I fell silent, staring straight at Julian until he uncomfortably turned away and asked softly. What? Seems like a lovesick fool. Not sure. Need to observe more. 2 days later, it was finally time for Adrian's exams. Julian and I waited outside the exam hall, him holding an umbrella to shade me. After the last exam, a crowd of kids surged out cheering. Adrian, surrounded by classmates, was clamoring to go to a KTV and sing all night. Go on, I smiled. Finally finished exams. You deserve to relax, have fun. Sophie, Adrian looked at me, something in his eyes I didn't dare examine closely. Don't think about it. On the way home, Julian remained silent, jaw tight, seemingly angry. The vast villa held only the two of us. Julian changed the dressing on the wound near my eye, his warm fingertips tracing down my cheekline. Then everything logically spiraled out of control. The living room lights were still bright. I swallowed with difficulty and said, Julian, let's go to the room. He propped himself up slightly, looking at me. No. I suddenly found the dialogue familiar, as if it had happened half a year ago, just with our positions reversed, and at that moment, the villa door suddenly swung open. Julian seemed not to notice, continuing to kiss me. The familiar woody scent from him, mixed with the kiss, filled my senses. Julian. Adrian rushed over, furious, pulling Julian off me. You're taking advantage. You did this on purpose. I'm obviously already an adult. Why did you lie to Sophie, saying I was 16? No respect for your elders. Julian frowned slightly, freed his arm from Adrian's grip, straightened his shirt that I had crumpled, then leisurely looked at Adrian. Didn't you lie to her too? When did I ever go on dates with Eleanor? When did I go engagement ring shopping with Eleanor? That initially noble and aloof temperament returned to him. I suddenly realized this version of Julian was actually quite aggressive. Adrian's eyes flickered, unable to retort, only gritting his teeth. Even so, I finished my exams now. I'm already an adult. I want to compete with you fairly. Julian scoffed, saying word by word, you don't stand a chance, just for words. And Adrian's eyes reddened. I met her first. First come doesn't guarantee anything. Besides, I'm with her partly thanks to you mistaking her and playing matchmaker after your memory loss. Talk about salt in the wound. Adrian stared at him, his gaze gradually turning fierce. According to the agreement, now that I've finished my exams, the shares under my name should be transferred to me. Julian, anything you can give her, I can give too. And you had ulterior motives from the start. Dare you say that when I first mistook her, and you paid to keep her here, it wasn't part of your plan? You even anticipated the kidnapping and had people ready to intervene. Both Sophie and I were just your pawns. Julian looked coldly at him. Adrian, you'd better understand. I took you in initially not because of your pitiful shares, but because your mother entrusted you to me. I'm indeed not a good person, but in raising you, I've always had a clear conscience. Adrian's eyes reddened further. His lips trembled. But in the end he said nothing, turned and went upstairs. Julian then turned, looked down at me. I looked at him expressionlessly. You did this on purpose. He was silent for 2 seconds. Yes? Julian, what the hell does this mean? He suddenly knelt on one knee before me, gently took my hand. That question you asked me, I can answer now. Yes, I was jealous. Not just jealous, but envious. Envious that Adrian met you first, envious you were with him, even if only for a day. Envious you kissed him. I only kissed Adrian once, the night we confirmed our relationship under a streetlight. A mere brush of lips. But his ears turned red. The question is, it was deserted that night. How did Julian know? Adrian was always going out during that time. I was worried, concerned it might be my brother and sister-in-law's doing. So I followed him in the car. So when Adrian and I kissed, Julian was watching from the car. I was silent for a long time before speaking again. Adrian said you were setting up a scheme. What exactly was it? My second sister left all her shares to Adrian, entrusting me to manage them. Many in the Knight family coveted these shares after several negotiations. We agreed that once Adrian finished his exams, the shares would be fully transferred to him. But if I got married before that, I could formally complete the adoption process. Then whether to return the shares to him would be entirely up to me. My brother and sister-in-law saw me bring you back and Adrian accepting you so readily, feared they'd lose their chance to profit from the chaos, so they orchestrated his kidnapping. So that's how it was. I fell silent. The living room grew quiet. Julian's eyes gradually filled with panic and helplessness. Sophie, I snapped back to reality. And now? Now? He paused, then pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it. A diamond sparkled brilliantly on black velvet. I'd already chosen the engagement ring before I came to find you that day. Sophie, perhaps, will you marry me? I knocked on Adrian's door. No answer after a long while. So I pushed it open and walked in. He wasn't asleep, as expected. Holding a can of beer, he stood dejectedly on the balcony, lost in thought. Adrian, he turned, saw me, his eyelashes fluttering. Sophie. I sighed, stood beside him, and apologized. Sorry. Actually, this is ultimately my fault. I initiated things with you and then, tempted by Julian's offer, agreed to act with him. Sophie, I don't blame you. Adrian pursed his lips. I don't really blame my uncle either. I know the company he founded himself is already comparable to the main family. He doesn't need my shares. I just don't know what to do. It feels like I had a car accident. My memory got messed up for a while, and then everything fell apart. He looked at me, his eyes moist, as if with tears. So, Sophie, is it because I'm too inadequate, can't compare to my uncle in any way, that you chose to be with him? Of course not. I didn't hesitate. I'm with him because I love him. The word startled me first. Did I love Julian? Had my initial attraction grown to this extent without me noticing this natural? Blurting out left me feeling bewildered and scared. I see. Adrian's voice clearly held a sob. It's late. You should get some rest too, Sophie. My mind in turmoil. I walked towards the door, just before it closed behind me. Adrian's voice came from inside the room, hoarse, as if from crying. Even so, I'll always like you. Sophie, the door shut. I stood dazed for a moment, then returned to the bedroom. Julian was sitting by the desk, reading a book, his expression calm, even detached, showing no sign of having just been rejected. This was enough to make my agitated heart gradually cool down. I walked over to him, hearing the noise. Julian slightly looked up, finished talking with him. I nodded. Double quotes. Mr. Wang, the lawyer, called yesterday. Said the lawsuit against my parents and brother is underway. My wounds are mostly healed too. I think I can move back tomorrow. Julian reacted strongly. He stood up abruptly, stared into my eyes word by word. What did you say? I steadied myself. Julian, I think we're only. The rest of my words were cut off by his lips. He murmured against my mouth with a strange resentment. So this is why you refused my proposal? You want to reconsider our relationship? What was he talking about? I pushed Julian away forcefully. Took a step back, stared at him. You acted so calm. I thought the proposal was just casual, and you didn't care about being rejected. Does anyone propose casually? He retorted coldly. Then why did you propose to me? Julian closed his eyes, and when he opened them, it seemed he'd reached a decision. Because I love you. Sophie. I love you. So I want to marry you. It felt like fireworks exploded in my head. I stared blankly at Julian before me. Even as he lowered his head to kiss me again, I hadn't fully processed it. But our bodies were already familiar with each other, responding instinctively. The kiss lasted a long time. He rested his forehead against mine, breathing slightly rapid. So cunning, Sophie. Always making me say it first. Who told you to act so composed after being rejected? I refused to admit it, lifting my chin slightly. Maybe saying this now is just another lie. Julian's lips twitched, his hand slid down, clasped the small of my back and pulled me forward, saying resignedly, I wanted to pretend nothing happened, so you wouldn't feel pressure to run off, leaving me no chance to propose again. Quite the strategist. CEO Knight. I couldn't help but smile and blink at him. Do you want to try proposing again now? Then, as Julian obediently knelt on one knee again, I take the initiative to stretch out a hand in front of him. All right, let's get married. Later, Julian took me to choose a wedding dress. Coming out of the fitting room, I saw him staring at his phone, lips pressed, expression somewhat cold. What's wrong? I tried to look, but he put his phone away. Nothing, a small matter. I promised to handle it by tonight, Sophie. Focus on trying dresses. I nodded and didn't press further. I'd actually caught a glimpse. The persistent Eleanor had teamed up with my resentful mother. This dynamic duo was spreading rumors online, probably wanting to join my dad and brother for a family reunion behind bars. Julian could handle it. I refocused, looking at my reflection in the mirror. Long ago, during university, I worked part-time at a bridal shop. One slow day, the shop owner urged us all to try on dresses, saying every girl dreamed of wearing a white dress and marrying the one she loved. I smiled back then, didn't try it on, just said, I never dreamed of that. My only dream is to earn lots and lots of money, more than I could ever spend. Yet years later, I truly had more money than I could spend, and I had someone to marry. I took 2 steps forward, looking at my reflection. The mermaid-style dress was studded with diamonds. Julian, in a suit, walked over, stood beside me, his large, well-shaped hand resting lightly on my waist. A white dress really is beautiful, after all.